Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a quick video about how I care for my succulents, cacti, and stringing succulent plants. Succulents and cacti are a very common first plant because they're really appealing and they're readily available in pretty much any store. Usually when bigger stores have plants, if they have any, they usually have cacti and succulents. And many people gravitate towards them because they have a unique look, and that's completely understandable. I have quite a few. So I treat all of my succulents and cacti the same, regardless of what type they are, and they seem to be doing well. Some people may do it different, but I'm just sharing the way that I do it. But some do show their needs more than others will. I can insert a clip of a video of one of my succulents that shows very obvious signs of needing water. It is a Snapchat video though, so I think there's like a filter over it, so just bear with me on that. But a lot of plants will have like a shriveled appearance whenever they need water.
This is an example of a succulent that needs water. It has a shriveled appearance to it, and if you squeeze it, it's a little bit squishy. So they retain a lot of water, and you should wait till they get a little bit shrivelly before you water them, or they feel a little flimsy, so then you don't overwater them and give them root rot.
The succulent I show in that video is this one. A lot of succulents will get a shriveled appearance whenever they need water. As you can see, compared to the last video, it has really got its form back. Same thing with stringing plants as well. Overwatering and lack of sunlight is the biggest killer of all cacti, succulent type plants. But for these guys, whenever they need water, you'll be able to grab one of these pearls hanging off here and squeeze it a little. And if they look shrivelly or if there's too much give,
they do need water.
I think the best way to remember that these guys don't need that much water is because of the fact that succulents and cacti aren't naturally growing in like Ohio where I live. They grow in a more desert-like climate, so they retain a lot of water. They don't want to be like overflowed with water, because then they'll just be sitting in a bunch of wetness and get root rot and get mushy and gross and probably die. It's also important to make sure that you have a soil that is well draining. I mean, a lot of people are really against using like the Miracle-Gro like soils in general, but if that's what you have, use it. Because I mean, I've used it and I haven't had any horrible issues with it or anything. But a lot of people will mix mulch in or some different mosses and stuff just to let the water roll through easier than it would in just compact dirt. All of my plants have been recently watered, but Sansevieria are technically in the succulent family. So I'll show you one that obviously needs some water right now. You can see this shrivelly appearance on the leaves here. Leaves? I think those are leaves. And they're somewhat bendy. Now, the difference here is that these can do pretty well in low light, so these are probably a better plant for if you don't have super high sun in your area, especially if you're living in a dorm maybe. And they can go a long period of time without having water. You wouldn't let them completely dry out. The same with all the other succulents and cacti as well. If you don't have access to full sun, I have my string of pearls underneath a grow light directly on it for the whole day. It doesn't get a ton of other sunlight and it's been growing like crazy. Invest in a grow light. Another example of a string plant that will tell you pretty easily if it needs watered is a string of hearts. Most string plants will tell you when they need watered because they look shrivelly or they feel like they have some give to them. These you can usually bend pretty easy and they'll have a shriveled appearance. These ones aren't quite there yet. You can see these ones up here are a bit shrivelly. These are cuttings, so they're kind of getting used to their climate. If you squeeze it, it'll feel a little bit squishier than it would if it were fully watered. So they've shed all their water and they're not retaining as much water as they had before. So that's when you know you need to water it. One of the biggest issues people have is the overwatering and sun issues. Probably overwatering more so than that. I would say depending on where you live and the temperature. I live in Ohio, so I water mine every 2 weeks and less than that in the winter time because the water holds in more because it's not getting as much sun. But you really need to base that off the area you live. So if you live in an area that is more dry and sunny, you might need to water them every week. Really make sure you're letting your soil dry out completely before you give them more water so they're not just in a continuous cycle of being wet, because then they'll develop root rot and probably die, unfortunately. Usually tell mine need water also if the dirt kind of like clumps up in and has like this like separated from the pot type of look. If you can't tell by the way that the plant looks if it needs water or not, definitely make sure you're keeping an eye on the dirt. I recommend sticking your finger in and feeling around and making sure it's not wet underneath the very top layer. But see, this one, it has well draining soil in there. So there's, I think this is perlite, and there's some mulch type substrate in there. The most important thing to remember is that they're desert type plants. So if you don't have the environment for them, they might not do well for you. If you're an overwaterer, they also might not do well for you. If you're an overwaterer or you don't have maybe high sun, I would say a peace lily would probably be good for you. Maybe a fern. Ferns like high humidity though. I always recommend pothos as the first plant everyone gets. But they do need some sun, but they can tolerate neglect. But you also don't want to overwater a pothos, but they can handle it better than a succulent could. So succulents are definitely more challenging than some of the other house plants or plants that people get for like dorms. But it's completely understandable why people like them. I like them a lot. You can put them in some pretty cool planters. Example. It's just important to remember what they can and cannot tolerate. So to summarize that, make sure your succulents are getting water, but not too much water. Gauge it on the area you live in and check the appearance of the succulents to see if they look like they need water, and if you can't tell, check the soil and feel for how damp it feels. 2, make sure it's getting sunlight, a decent amount of sunlight. It's okay if it's not super direct sunlight because you don't want to burn it, but they do like full sun. And if you can't get full sun, I would recommend getting a plant light, so then they'll have artificial sunlight, but it still keeps them alive. Make sure you're getting a well-draining soil. They sell this a lot at the stores, but if you want to make your own, there are plenty of different things that you can put in it. You can just get like regular dirt, and then it's getting its nutrition and the fertilizers and things it needs, but also put in some maybe like sand, like coarse small pebbles possibly, and mulch, more like big dense substrates, so then the water flows through quicker. You can add in orchid bark. I know a lot of people will do that to make sure that they have a well-draining substrate for their plants, so then you do not get root rot. That's pretty much it. Succulents are pretty easy. You just gotta kind of get over the habit of overwatering and making sure they have enough sunlight. I wanted to make a short video for today and make sure that I was sharing decent info and not ramble for forever. If you like this video and would like more educational type videos, please do subscribe and like and leave a comment and let me know what type of plant videos you'd like to see next. Let me know if there's a certain type of plant variety that you would like some information on, and I will try to give it to you. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.